What's up, guys? Here with you at FC Wonderkid, episode 92, here with my guy, Preston. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Normally I have like a funny thing to say, but the first thing we have to get it out of the way. The first thing we have to say is we're thinking of everybody in Turkey, in Syria. I mean, these earthquakes are just things that you see in disaster movies, man. And I don't really have anything. I want to start things off happier, but the images that come out of there, the stuff that you see, and how much at least the footballing world is rallying around everything going on there. It gives you hope, even if there's no hope to be had right now in Turkey. So I really am wishing the best. But I got to ask you, beyond the football, man, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. And that's a phenomenal way of starting it. And I want to give a big shout to Demiral doing giveaways of players signed jerseys. That's an excellent initiative because the people in Turkey deserve everything, and Syria, okay? Both countries unfortunately got hit by earthquakes, and they deserve the whole support of the world, and we should unite and help. Big shout out to that. But needing help too, okay? I gotta say, in a football sense, it's Chelsea. Oh my days. 3 draws in a row. And Graham Potter now with Enzo, João Felix, Benoit Badiashile, that I think they're looking good. People are starting to point fingers at Graham Potter. And what do you think? Will he stay so until the end of the season, Breton?
Once again, if it was anybody other than Todd Boehly, I would say yes, I think he would stay through the end of the season. But because it's Todd Boehly, I think there's no way in hell he stays through the end of the season. I mean, we're talking about, 100 million euros a point as it stands right now. But yeah, listen, that first half for Chelsea, was encouraging, right? I mean, you saw the electric nature of Mudryk, even though Cucurella didn't want to pass to him much. I don't know what's going on there. You saw the control that Enzo has of games. Even if he does make a mistake here and there, you're starting to see Enzo like kind of settle in, and you also see that wonderful connection. I think him and João Felix, I think they're the only two people that are like literally on the same page, right? They're the only two people that were on the same page for Chelsea. So there are glimmers of hope for Chelsea. But yes, I mean, tongue in cheek, I say, and Badiashile is great. And guess who's not registered for the Champions League?
Badiashile.
That makes no sense.
The wrong decision right there. And I want to say, you're saying Enzo's showing, he was great, okay, in this game against West Ham. And Enzo, it's his second game. It's his second game, and I want to see Chelsea's record until the end of the season with losses too, because Enzo will improve from what was in the past. And João Felix and Enzo are different class, and they need a proper striker in front. João Felix with a striker, with a proper number 9, Harry Kane, Osimhen, even Gonçalo Ramos. If Enzo, Felix, Benfica connection is looking special, with Gonçalo Ramos, it's going to look even better. So I just want to give that shout. And it's 0 wins and 323 million pounds spent. This is such a big investment, and people should be pointing fingers at the results not being there for Chelsea. So I really got to say that first. That has to be said.
And I will say it as well. I know Chelsea fans will feel robbed, right? With the technically it was a handball and the whole, you put your hand down and the ball hits it. I mean, that looked relatively intentional. I don't know whether or not that ball was going in, but when it comes down to it, I get that feeling. But let's be honest, Chelsea fans. That is not the way you win necessarily a game. The way you win a game is you play well as a team, and you play as good in the second half as you do the first half, which did not happen. They looked relatively lifeless. West Ham was the better team in the second half. There's no doubt about it. So I think we need to focus. You're in 10th place anyway, right? You need to focus more on. You don't want to win this game by, I forget who it was. Was it Soucek or whoever it was that put their hand down? Win this game because you outclass them, you outplay them, right? And there were glimmers of hope. There absolutely were glimmers of hope. And the defense, I think, is much better. It's just, they fell asleep. I mean, that's just not knowing each other. It's not knowing each other well.
And I
right?
agree. And this locker room, I think one of the main reasons why Chelsea, it's very tough locker room for Graham Potter to manage at Chelsea. Players like, in my opinion, Pulisic knows he's leaving. I see Conor Gallagher maybe, Ziyech. I see Mendy, Kovacic, that's a brilliant player, Kante, okay, an historic player for Chelsea. All these players are going to leave short term, so it must be so hard to handle for Graham Potter. But come on, decisions like starting Cucurella ahead of Ben Chilwell can't happen. And it's shocking that we didn't see Chilwell play with Mudryk against West Ham. That was an obvious decision, in my opinion, and I want to see that in the future. And Enzo, João Felix, Mudryk, Chilwell there, Benoit Badiashile, those are big, I think, positives for Chelsea in this game, in my opinion.
But you know what's pretty insane is that, like, Graham Potter playing Marc Cucurella at Brighton has been so different than Graham Potter playing Marc Cucurella at Chelsea. Right? I get it. It's a different personnel, very clearly, but Marc Cucurella was always his best bombing forward, and he doesn't do that anymore. In fact, he's more of a backwards or a sideways player, maybe a little more of a conductor, and yet the ball always finds him. But yes, I agree. He limited Mudryk. I mean, he essentially acted. Marc Cucurella acted as the best defender on Mykhailo Mudryk. In that game, and I want to see more of him. And I think you're right. Chilwell probably would have been better in that moment, or neither of them, frankly. But Cucurella in a Brighton shirt has been very different than Cucurella in a Chelsea shirt.
And look at the Cucurella with Mudryk game, and look at Luke Shaw with Sancho game. The difference is unbelievable, and the team dynamic must be there. Chelsea start Chilwell with Mudryk. At least try it. Everyone deserves to see that happen. That's the shout that I must do. And I want to ask you this, because it was a West Ham Chelsea, and who would you rather have? Enzo Fernandez or Declan Rice right now? I'm going to say Enzo Fernandez. I prefer Enzo right now, in my opinion. I'm going to say that.
I mean, I don't think that's too hard of a decision. I would go with Enzo because he can do a whole lot more in a whole lot of directions, and he's obviously coming from a much better club setup and a much better run of form. But Declan Rice clearly, or a club with a run of form. But Declan Rice has clearly been like the only consistent good thing for West Ham at all this whole season, as these supporters, these West Ham supporters that were getting used to like decent times, right? Decent times. They're now holding their nose when they go to these games, and David Moyes still has a job, and they're trying to dig their way out of a relegation fight. But Enzo and Declan can certainly coexist in a midfield in the future.
And I think that might happen. Let's see with Chelsea. Todd Boehly, if that midfield happens, it's certainly one of the best. And Andrei Santos in the future. Already 5 goals in Copa Sudamericana. Want to highlight this Wonderkid. One of the best signings, in my opinion, of the transfers in January. So
absolutely, especially for the value, considering how much they spent on everything else. Andre Santos is going to pay off fivefold, if not more than that.
And
Chukwuemeka. And Chukwuemeka, I'm a little bummed we didn't see much of him in that game, or at all. I don't even think he got on the pitch, did he?
No.
If he did, he was anonymous. But no, I'm pretty sure he wasn't on the pitch. But listen, if you're going to spotlight Brazil, right? And you're going to spotlight Andre Santos. You also got to give a shout out to Uruguay's U20s, who actually have a 2-point lead over Brazil as they get ready for that finale, that last game to potentially win the U20 Sudamericana. They have been very, very good.
True.
And in the future, as that game happens, we will spotlight some of those players you got to watch that are not named Andre Santos and Vitor Roque.
I'm gonna say him. I was gonna mention him later.
We can go back to that, but you just got my mind racing when you spoke about Andre Santos, because this kid Fabricio Diaz for Uruguay is absolutely phenomenal, and I hope somebody takes a stab at him.
Portuguese
in
clubs,
the very
man.
near future.
Sporting Port, Benfica. Go for this kid, man, okay? Impressing in Copa Sudamericana. But you mentioned Vitor Roque, and he's being very linked to Arsenal, and Arsenal do need some inspiration in that attack that Gabriel Jesus is missing. Bukayo Saka is clearly the best player of Arsenal next to Martin Odegaard. It's clear as day, and they need a goal scorer. Must happen. And Trossard, he did what he got to do. Super sub, scored 16 million transfer. He's doing. It's not bad, but they need more. They need more, in my opinion, and they need the goal scorers to perform. Arsenal. So
I'm gonna say it. They look tired. I mean, they look tired. They don't look as bright as they have in the past. Where it was every game was like a small-sided pitch game, like where they were out there and they were ready to just show off, right? They were ready to get things done. They look tired, and I'm pointing more specifically at that defense. Even though they're not letting up goals a lot at all, really, too much, they are kind of turning off at the wrong times. And William Saliba and Gabriel are two of the ones I think that are the culprits. And don't get me wrong, they've been absolutely phenomenal for Arsenal this whole season. But I'm just simply saying,
best center back in the Prem.
They just,
this season.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Botman and Fabian Schär probably want to fight you for that.
And then Lewis Dunk.
But they've now
and then Lewis
Dunk. But they've now let up goals in 3 games. So hey, Newcastle's no longer. No, I'm just kidding. But I do have to say, like William Saliba, I keep hawking on this. I keep that run of a month, right, where he was not playing for France, but he was going through that whole period, that whole World Cup and that whole experience. I almost think it was a net negative for him.
True.
In the long run, it's a net positive, right? Because it's an experience, but he didn't earn anything from that, right?
He didn't play a lot.
Exactly.
Facts.
And I almost feel like that he hasn't been back to his pre-World Cup form, and that's okay because Arsenal, they're not necessarily getting dropped, but they are dropping points, and these are very costly points. When you have 2 fixtures on the horizon, one this Wednesday at the Emirates versus Manchester City. So I'll be really interested to see how a very frustrated Manchester City attack does against a very not tired, but under their best Arsenal center back duo. Let's say that.
It's going to be an interesting game. And if Man City wins both their games, next games of the Prem, they will be equaled with Arsenal. So these games against Everton and now Brentford are very costly for Arsenal and Arteta. I'm going to say this. For starters, I really believe that the man of the match of the Arsenal-Brentford was Ivan Toney. And they showed that Arsenal should have got him in January, maybe, okay? Because Arsenal needs goals. Eddie Nketiah, Gabriel Jesus is missed, and Toney would have performed just like England. England in the World Cup needed Toney too. Toney has 20 games, 14 goals, and 3 assists. Physicality, he matched Gabriel and Saliba. And Emirates, this stadium is so tough to play in right now. So this is my big shout out of the match. And once again, I want to highlight, if Arsenal do not win titles in the next 2-3 years, players like Saliba, Saka, Odegaard will not be happy at the club. They won't. No. That's the expectations of the top players right now. So Arsenal must perform. And I think they will. I think Arsenal can win a Premier League title with Arteta. But it's going to be tough. And that's so exciting, man, with the Prem.
It is. I mean, this is almost... it makes me think back to kind of where we were 18 months ago, right? When it came to Mikel Arteta and his project, right? And then you fast forward, and I don't think even Mikel Arteta, I don't think he realized how quickly this kind of project could gain steam, right? It's one of those things where maybe you expect incremental growth with support along the way. But no, I mean, they went into this January transfer window having to figure out how to make a move, right, to shore things up because they have this lead that should be a sustainable lead in the Premier League if they can continue to play up to their form. So now you've just got this massive transformation that is his own doing, and it's kind of like, have Arsenal gotten ahead of themselves? I don't think so.
Mhm.
I don't think so. I think them dropping points is fine as long as they're not dropping game after game after game and it becomes 3, 5, 7 losses, like, say, a Liverpool shutdown in the past when they've had these phenomenal starts to the season.
They gotta win. They gotta win against
But
City.
it is a question that he would not be a human if it wasn't creeping back into his mind like, holy crap, we've come really far, really fast, right? Yeah. And that's interesting, and I think we're going to get our first big answer this week.
And for Arsenal and Arteta, the match against Man City next week is the most important match of the season. People will say if Arsenal are gonna win the league if they perform big time in this game. And Man City can turn around this whole season with negative news surrounding Bernardo Silva, the Cancelo exits, and obviously the financial accusations, surrounding Man City. If they beat Arsenal, everything goes around. So it's a big, very important match for Arsenal and for Man City. But again, Arsenal should have signed more players in January, in my opinion, and a player like Tony would have been good. I want to reiterate that because I really think that.
And that midfielder, right?
Tielemans, man. We said it.
Man. I don't get it. I don't get it.
That's crazy for me. Like,
that felt like as big of a slam dunk as picking up Trossard for cheap instead of wading into the fight for Mudryk. I know a lot of people think Mudryk would be the key. I think Mudryk would be the key to sustainability at the top, right? Or close to the top for Arsenal long term. But in terms of Trossard versus Mudryk for this particular transfer window, Trossard gives him a little more what's the word? Not variability. A little more tactical flexibility. A little more guarantees. Somebody that's been here before. Yes. I know Mudryk's probably the better player long term, but Trossard gets it done right now, and I feel like Tielemans would have done that in midfield, in depth in midfield for them as well, without hurting a long term vision. Right? Without hurting a long term vision, and I really think that could have been something they could have gotten over the line, and now with how Leicester's playing and with Brendan Rodgers spanking Tottenham 4-1, I think you couldn't pry Tielemans away long. No, I'm just kidding. But
Iheanacho, big game from him, and I want to give a shout on the Prem. I want to give because I'm Portuguese too, but it's true. Yeah. Fulham are playing their top 8, in the Premier League, and it's because of Mark Silva. Mark Silva effect is real. Bringing in Palhinha, putting in Andres Pereira, Tete, Leno, phenomenal goalkeeper, Mitrovic, and super sub Carlos Vinicius. All the right moves were done, and Willian at 34 is balling out in London with Fulham. So big shout out to this club that they're doing great decisions.
And I'll tell you what, big shout out. I know we don't do this these days. We don't do this. A big shout out to the ownership group at Fulham.
True.
Okay, I believe his name is Tony Khan. I could be wrong, but big shout out to him because look at what Fulham had gone through over the last 5 to 7. What is it? 5 years? Up, down, up, down, up, down. Right.
True.
And to stick with it, and this time he stuck to his guns. It wasn't I'm going to go spend and bring in, who was it? Anguissa before Anguissa was Napoli Anguissa. Right, to bring in a bunch of guys that were just so, just a price tag, essentially, that never worked out at all. And to instead go for a vision, right, and give Marco Silva the tools to bring in some of these players that have been massive this year. Andreas Pereira, at this level of what they spent for him, has been massive value. Somehow Marco Silva has turned Tim Ream into one of the most informed, and I'm going to say it right now, Tim Ream might possibly be the most informed center back in the Premier League right now. And if you want a certainty, Tim Ream is definitely the most informed center back ever. This is the best stretch of form ever for an American center back in any European league. In any European
35.
league. And it's so cool to see. It really is. And
Oh my
Anthony
God.
Robinson next to him. Kenny Tete has been phenomenal for them when he was cast aside after he stepped out of the Eredivisie for the first time. I mean, they've just kind of resurrected the careers of a lot of really good players. I mean, Bobby D. Cordova-Reed, like, what are these players? These are people that you would have expected only to stay good in the championship,
And
not to come up to the Premier League and actually show that they can fit into a Premier League system. So
even Issa Diop
I
that
love it.
didn't work out for West Ham.
Yeah.
And at Fulham,
Yeah.
he's rejuvenated. So there's a lot of good decisions. And Tim Ream, man, phenomenal. That's a bold statement. And the other US, he's not a defender, but goalkeeper. It's Tim Howard.
Yeah.
Big shout to him too. Like, historic. And you guys, history, it looks like it's only getting better. Only getting better for you guys.
Well, like the names that Timmy Ream would be up against for what I just said in terms of it being the best stretch of form for any American center back in Europe ever. The names he'd be up against would be Aguchi Onyewu, Carlos Bocanegra, Jay Demerit. It would be John Brooks when he was at Wolfsburg, right? And elsewhere prior. And I'm probably missing some.
Not a Benfica.
Yeah. No, definitely not a Benfica. And I'm sorry for that. And I'm sure he's sorry for that too. No, but like, you know, there have been some decent center backs across our time, but like this resurrection of his career, considering how many times Tim Ream has come up with Fulham to the Premier League and then not been able to hold a starting spot in the 11. This is just so refreshing and so cool to see. And even form a partnership, form a bond with Jedi Robinson right to his left. So I love it. Long may it continue, and good on Tim Ream, who is making the best out of the twilight of his career. Do I feel like Fulham will follow Pedro's prognostication to finish top 7? I would love for that to come true. Do I think they might fade into the end of the year? I don't know, man. Everybody's dropping points right now, and it's kind of refreshing to see.
Oh my goodness. Brentford doesn't seem to be one of those clubs too dropping points.
True.
Fulham, Brentford, Newcastle, amazing teams to watch. And even Wolves, man, they got a shocking win, 2-1 win to Southampton. Carlos Alcaraz scored. Bargain signing from Southampton, and João Gomes, okay, with the goal-scoring goal needed, 2-1 win, and 18 million signing that is showing to prove right, okay, still a Wonderkid. So we're mentioning the Prem too, but if you clicked in this video, you want to know the Champions League big-time predictions because it's coming up. And we can all mention PSG that played this week, Bayern that played this week. We can talk all about it in the Champions League. So before we get to it, leave your prediction of the Champions League and tell us who do you think will win each fixture. We want to see those comments down below. And it's exciting, man. It's exciting. So we should start with the biggest game, right, Breton?
Yeah, well, before you start with the biggest game, right, let's just really quickly run through who's playing because it's PSG Bayern, and that is the biggest game. AC Milan Spurs, Chelsea Dortmund, Benfica Club Brugge. And the majority of these teams, okay, save for Benfica, save for maybe Bayern now, but the majority of these teams have started off their 2023 in horrendous form, right? In horrendous form. PSG just got beat out of the Coupe de France by Marseille, and then a couple days later, with injuries to Messi and Mbappe, they just got beat by AS Monaco. Bayern started 2023 with a bunch of draws and seemingly are back on board. AC Milan, thank whoever, right, that AC Milan won their first game of the season. They have been atrocious to start this 2023. Spurs just got their butts handed to them by Leicester City, who is trying to get out of a relegation scrap. And Chelsea, well, Chelsea's still 10th, even though they spent 300 plus million. But Dortmund, Benfica, and Bayern are maybe on the up. But well, it's Champions League, man. A lot changes in the 3 months from the group stage to the knockout rounds. You know?
It's a lot's happening, man. And even transfers happen in all this with Bayern Munich. And I think the transfer of Bayern with Drunken Sil is a huge up for them. And PSG Bayern Munich, PSG didn't play with their best players against Monaco. Okay, Messi wasn't there, and I think he will he will be in the Champions League game, at least everybody hopes. So PSG ain't looking good with the loss with Marseille. Now Monaco, but everybody expects to see PSG going bold in the Champions League. And if they don't, the world of football is going to be pointing fingers. So pressure is on. Donnarumma, Messi, Mbappe, Neymar, Verratti, Marquinhos, Sergio Ramos. So many stars are at PSG. So they must perform against Bayern Munich. That Jamal Musiala could be the best player in these two fixtures. Don't be surprised if that happens. And that would be an excellent introduction to the world of football. The whole world of football, okay? But you should know about Jamal Musiala. And an interesting fact about this fixture, in my opinion, PSG and Bayern Munich, in my opinion, have the best fullback duos in the world of football. Alphonso Davies and João Cancelo for Bayern Munich. And for PSG, Nuno Mendes and Hakimi. Both terrific and speedy, man. The best world class, in my opinion, duos.
And we're gonna see who's the best. We're gonna see who's the best. I mean, that's literally the only note I got down here. Is it Cancelo and Fonzie, or is it Hakimi and Mendes? Right? And you gotta love it. I mean, the Cancelo addition was such a smart addition to Nagelsmann's setup at Bayern and to their run. But this is a club here. Bayern is this well-oiled machine that has obviously been at the top of German football for years and years and years now. PSG obviously is very similar to where it feels like a foregone conclusion that even after they lose to Monaco, they're going to win Ligue 1. But Bayern is not full out. The expectation is not on Nagelsmann to go win the Champions League. It's to do really well and maybe win it.
Bayern has to be a contender, though, Bretson, in my opinion.
They definitely are a contender. But what I'm saying is Nagelsmann will not lose his job if he loses in this round, in my opinion. Whereas Christophe Galtier will lose his job if PSG loses in this round. The only reason you have and retain Messi is not to win the Coupe de France, which is the only competition that Messi has ever been in that he still has not won. Okay? The only reason you retain Messi, retain Neymar, retain Mbappe, pay him all these bucks, is not to win Ligue 1 for the umpteenth time. It is to win the Champions League. And if you do not win the Champions League,
you're out.
You should be kicked by the wayside, right? So, Luis Campos might get another year, but Galtier, he's gone if they do not win this.
I like that
Bayern.
prediction, and it makes a lot of sense. And I want to highlight, too, with PSG. PSG right now, with under 24 talent, they are stacked, absolutely stacked. From Mbappe, Donnarumma, Vitinha, Ekitike, okay, great player. Warren Zaïre-Emery at 16, unbelievable. Bembele. So there's great players to watch in this team, and Nuno Mendes.
Oh yeah, of course, Nuno Mendes. What's he now? 21? 20 still?
2021. Yeah, I think he's 20. Goodness. I think 20. I think he's just 20 still. So unbelievable.
Feel like we've been talking about him way too long.
16, 17 I've been watching him. So
but listen, like there is a limitation here, right? PSG is injured, or they were resting their players for what obviously is a much bigger clash this week. They gave a chance to El Shaddai Bitshaibu. I don't know how to say it. And he is still a phenomenal high ceiling talent. But it goes to show you that sometimes you can't just give a player a start like that and expect him to always perform. These kids are kids. They're still developing. True. They're not all Erling Haaland's at 17 and or whatever, right? A good center back at Saliba's at 17 or something. Exactly. Bitshaibu had himself an absolute shocker against Monaco, whereas Warren Zaïre-Emery scored his second league on goal. So it comes with the territory, but PSG ain't about that territory, and that's exactly why you see PSG lose a lot of their youth products. That's why Nkunku went off. That's why, all sorts of players that we could list that went off. But it's refreshing in one sense, but when it doesn't work out, it's always like, well, why'd you play the kids in the first place?
True.
True. But the star of that Monaco PSG game, I must say, as Elias say, Ben Seguir. Just and with some Ben Yedder, who is the eternal wonder kid, I guess you could say. That man scores so consistently. It is just shocking. At 32 years old, what Ben Yedder has done.
Two braces in the last 2 games against PSG. A beast at FIFA and a beast in real life, okay, people? Understand that.
I love it.
From Monaco, captain. Unbelievable. And Ben Seguir at 17, that assists to one of the best Wonderkids to watch under 18. Andreas Leldrup, Ben Seguir, Warren Zaire-Emery. So many talents are now coming up. I'm excited, man. And the other player, we're mentioning PSG. We have to say that Bayern beats Bochum 3-0, and Bayern do have a ton of talents. It's not just Dortmund. And Ibrahimovic, became the second youngest player to debut for Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga. Yep. And it's not Ibrahimovic at AC Milan. It's the new Ibrahimovic developed by Bayern Munich. Be excited. Yep. And Ibrahimovic, Musiala, De Ligt, Matthijs Tel. There's a lot. Alphonso Davies, obviously, a lot of young players. Paul Warner. Oh, man. So, was so much at Bayern Munich.
This Ibrahimovic is oh, goodness, I just said soccer. Oof. Oh, man, I'm in trouble. 2 football careers younger. 2 football careers younger than Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Okay, he's 25 years younger. It's pretty impressive. But this Ibrahimovic is definitely one you're going to watch and track in the future, and hopefully it does work out for him long-term at Bayern. But he is getting the love he has deserved because he has been consistent for their youth squad. But there was, I agree. It's a clash of, phenomenal development system up to a point and both clubs that expect results right now well beyond their domestic leagues, because while Bayern's in more of a fight in the Bundesliga this season, we do expect them to pull it out. While PSG might have dropped the game against Monaco, they still have a 7-point lead and they should be okay long-term, domestic. But when it comes down to it, PSG Bayern is a clash that everybody's going to want to watch.
We'll go through.
And I do have to ask you, there's an X factor here for me that is not Messi, that is not Neymar, it is not Mbappe and whether or not he plays. Believe it or not, it's a guy that has not necessarily gotten running yet at PSG. It's whether or not Vitinha can do something for PSG and whether or not he even plays a role. I don't know. But listen, I've just looked at it, and Vitinha has not been the Vitinha we saw and the Vitinha we know he can be at PSG just yet. And I don't know if that's part and parcel of Galtier's system. I don't know if it's the expectations of playing for PSG. But I wanted to bring it up to you because you and I are both still incredibly high on Vitinha. Oh, yeah. You in particular, long-term, same as Fabio Vieira at Arsenal. Yep. But are there yellow flags or red flags that are currently raised for you with Vitinha at PSG? Or do you expect him to come good or force a move at some point?
I think just like Nunes, it's the first season at PSG. Vitinha, I think in the next season, the third, the fourth, he'll only improve with time. And he'll gain importance too for the Portuguese national team. Wearing signs right now, but I'm confident that he can go bold against Bayern Munich, against Jamal Musiala and Kimmich. Very tough competition. So who's going to go through in your opinion? PSG or Bayern Munich, Breton?
Mia. Bayern Munich.
Jamal Musiala masterclass incoming. Those are the expectations, I guess. And Alphonso Davies. Bora Nunes. But a lot. Yep. Messi. If you're going to win the 8th Ballon d'Or, go bold against Bayern Munich. Everybody wants to see it. So let's see.
And I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna tell you who the actual X factor for Bayern is. Beyond Musiala, the X factor for Bayern Munich is gonna be Jan Sommer.
Oh,
it's gonna be Jan Sommer.
Good show.
Because he can turn it on in these big games, right? We've seen it before, obviously with the Swiss national team as well. But we also know that Donnarumma can do that as well. So it's going to be clearly we are spending so much time on PSG Bayern because there's a reason. There's an absolute reason. This is the blockbuster, and I'm excited.
And so I want to give a shout to Club Brugge against Benfica. I do think Benfica will go through against Club Brugge. Yes. Okay, I'm really confident, even without Enzo, cashed in big time. But Benfica, Club Brugge is a scouting heaven. Bargains everywhere for the top teams. Skov Olsen, like must be shouted out for Club Brugge. Ferran Jutgla, informed player, former Barcelona. And in Benfica's side, you got João Mário, António Silva, Florentino Luís, Gonçalo Ramos. Top teams will be watching this Club Brugge Benfica. So you might as well too. Or at least just put the notifications to see who goes bold. So I think Benfica will go through.
But it is interesting because it's kind of a changing of the guard that's happening in Belgium right now. Club Brugge has been so dominant. Right now it's Genk. Genk is kind of unbeatable, right? Mark McKenzie, Philly bred shout out. Got to bring that up. But no, it is interesting because Barca, my gosh. Benfica was probably not expecting to lose that. What was it? The Taça de something versus Braga?
Yeah, it's like our FA Cup, Portuguese FA Cup, let's say.
You know, they weren't expecting, necessarily to get beat. Right, in that sense. So there's probably a little desire there. But no, nothing as stark as currently Club Brugge is not the dominant player in Belgium right now.
I want to say
and they have been missed.
Sorry. You're mentioning Braga, but Braga, literally, I think in Portugal, Portugal is starting to have a top 4. Porto, Benfica, Sporting e Sporting de Braga. Right now, they sold Vitinha for 32 million. Trincão, they also sold in the past. David Carmo to Porto. And if they get Champions League football, the Qatar investment, the same owners of PSG that own part of Braga will improve. Braga will improve. And they signed Pizzi and Bruma in January, okay? So these were top signings made by the club, and it will be very interesting to see. So just because you mentioned Braga, I was thinking about that, and they beat Benfica, and that was
Benfica has one boogeyman this whole season, right? And that's Braga.
True. The only two losses of Benfica were Braga.
And the only game Enzo ever lost in a Benfica shirt, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It's true. All my days, 3-0 loss. He just wasn't there. And that was a reason, too, that Rui Costa was just fine with Enzo leaving. He didn't love the club, as he said in his words. So it was bold, that interview of Rui Costa. But we're mentioning still Champions League. We said Tottenham is inconsistent ball with Conte, but Conte knows Serie A teams. And AC Milan ain't looking good. Rafael Leão, Tonali, Theo Hernandez. If you want to leave AC Milan, go bold in the Champions League against Tottenham, because there's an opportunity there for both clubs to turn the season around. So,
Milan has had one of the worst starts to 2023 that I've seen for a club that calls itself a big club in a very long time. And then Spurs beat Manchester City and then follow it up where if Antonio Conte was not in the hospital before this game, if he was on the sideline of this game, this 4-1 loss to Leicester City, he would have been put in the hospital right after this game. Because I don't know how he would have been able to watch that from the sideline and say this is a Spurs team capable of going far in the Champions League. That was atrocious. That was absolutely atrocious. That was much more than a James Maddison and Iheanacho masterclass of some sort. But Spurs clearly had their mind on this game. And you're right. AC Milan, I don't know, but Rafa Leão has had that amazing breakout season. He's had breakout seasons before, but has gone from having this insane season last season to where he almost single-handedly helped AC Milan get over the top of their Scudetto win. He's in a funk right now. He is in an absolute funk, and it almost seems like you can see it in his body language. He does not look like that same Rafa Leão bring it all on guy that we saw maybe even at the beginning of the season. We saw glimmers of it for AC Milan this season, but the Rossoneri are in a dangerous spot right now. They really are.
True, and Rafael Leão was competing with the likes of Kvaradona, Kvisha Kvaratskhelia, competing with the likes of Vinicius Junior, and his form in 2023 isn't matching that form in 2022. So people will be pointing fingers, and this match against Tottenham, bora lá, Rafael Leão. I believe in you. You've got intangibles, and you're one of the best wingers in the world of football. And this is a chance to show the world. Ibrahimovic, the huge motivator, man. I'm sure you'll be having words before that Champions League game. But I still believe Tottenham are going to go through with Antonio Conte. But I would love to see AC Milan, the Rossoneri, going bold in the Champions League with Maldini's decisions. Tonali, Mike Maignan back, Kalulu, Theo Hernandez. It'd be a great story since Napoli's going to win Serie A. So there's another big match. Frankfurt-Napoli, since we're mentioning AC Milan against Tottenham. Frankfurt-Napoli. Frankfurt's impressing so many people. Rando Colomani specifically in the Bundesliga with more than 10 assists. Unbelievable. Free transfer too. And then Napoli, Osimhen, Kvaradona, Lobotka, Min-jae Kim, Mario Rui. He's an excellent form, Mario Rui. I'm so hyped about that. Nuno Mendes, Mario Rui, Rafael Guerreiro with an assist to Brett today. So people watch this matchup of Napoli-Frankfurt. I just wanted to say that.
It's a dangerous one for Napoli. I think a little more dangerous than they would have thought heading into the season, because if we if we rewind back to pre-World Cup, Frankfurt hadn't really gotten off to a good start yet, right? But since Kolo Muani has come back, he's been that consistent form, but everybody has picked up around him. And Frankfurt has continued to impress. But I don't think it's that crazy to say. I think Napoli is built to get through this, and they should move on.
Contenders.
But it's not going to be as comfortable as anyone else out there when you give that first glance to Eintracht Frankfurt versus Napoli. You immediately go, Napoli's going to win. It ain't going to be that easy.
Frankfurt won their Europa League for a reason. But being honest, I think this Napoli team plays better than that Ajax team that went bold with Frankie de Jong, De Ligt, with Erik ten Hag. It was amazing to watch, but this Napoli team has world-class players with Osimhen, Kvaradona, Min-jae Kim. Literally, I think they could play in any team in the world of football right now. I know it's bold, and Spalletti, man, is the best coach in Serie A this season, no doubt in my mind. With Allegri there, Pioli there, not looking good. And Spalletti, great decision by the president of Napoli for him to stay. So I wanted to give a shout out to that. And we're mentioning, so we got Inter too. You want to give a shout out to Interport?
Maybe we can do that maybe next podcast. Since they're the week after. But the big one is Chelsea Dortmund.
Ooh.
That's coming. I believe that's on Wednesday.
Yes,
right? That's
is.
on Wednesday. That is midweek, and I don't know here. Dortmund's hot. Dortmund's hot. Chelsea's not. But Chelsea has all these new players, these saviors, these people. They got Enzo. But Dortmund is hot right now. Dortmund has been winning. They have been playing more cohesively. They've been getting it from all places. Most recently, it was Jamie Bino Gittins. Julian Brandt is once again in top Bundesliga form. Whether or not that carries over, I don't know. And I'm going to say it again for those that didn't hear me in the back. Jude Bellingham is the best player in the Bundesliga right now. Sorry.
Bold, man. Englishman, the mentality. That's why the whole world of football wants Jude Bellingham. Real, City, Liverpool, everywhere.
But Alex, like this was almost as if it's almost as if he doesn't read our FC Wonderkid comments. But it'd be amazing if he did, because if he read the comments saying, "Well, Musiala plays golf," or "Musiala plays tennis," or Thomas Mueller and all them. I'm talking about form right now. Jude Bellingham is so hot. Yes, Musiala's close, but it's as if Jude Bellingham listened and he put in a masterclass over the weekend without I believe getting on the score sheet. He had nine dribbles won, 9 complete dribbles during this game, which is the most for anyone in the Bundesliga this season. Beyond Jamal Musiala. Jude Bellingham, you don't look at him and go, yeah, this guy will take everybody on like a Jamal Musiala. I mean, he does. But to the tune of nine of them, Jamal Musiala has not hit that number yet. It's almost as if he was like, yeah, I am the best player. I can do anything in this. And listen, Jamal Musiala is an insane talent. But if Bellingham, once he takes that next step up to a more consistently run team from Dortmund somewhere else, it is going to be fun to watch those two going at it for years and years to come, except, I don't know, Musiala's not going to leave. Well, maybe he will go to the Premier League. Anyway,
both,
just got to say it.
Both. Wherever they go, they'll always be loved, I think. Jamal Musiala and Jude Bellingham. Because they're terrific players. And Dortmund is coming to London, okay? Or Dortmund is playing Chelsea with Jude Bellingham, an Englishman, playing terrific football, and Jamie Bino Jittens in 280 minutes in the Bundesliga with 3 goals. Terrific form. And watch out for Karim Adeyemi. Schlotterbeck improving. Rafael Kreir. Go bold against Chelsea. We want to see that. Man. That'd be incredible.
and Nico, watching him, that is the Nico Schlotterbeck we saw. That is what we have seen. That is, I think, what Dortmund was expecting. It has taken him a while to get there, but man, he is there. He is officially there. He is one of the better young center backs in the entire Bundesliga. And they have a chance. I know this is 10th place Chelsea, but this is still Chelsea. This is still a good team that will want to, because the Premier League is lost, they will want to make a statement in the Champions League. So Dortmund is going to have their hands full. And I do think this is the X factor for me, for Chelsea. I do think it's Mykhailo Mudryk against Dortmund's defense, because Dortmund's defense is not amazing.
Felix.
And I think Felix is big, but I think it's going to be the game-changing ability, that flair that you referenced last week. It's going to be that type of thing that wins Chelsea this game over both legs. So it'll be really interesting to me to see whether or not he can put in the performance that everybody is expecting of him so far, since we've seen glimpses, but we haven't seen the finished product yet.
And you're mentioning a player rejuvenated. I want to give a shout out to this player with Leverkusen, Florian Wirtz, okay, beating that ACL injury and now in top form for Leverkusen of Xabi Alonso. And Florian Wirtz is one of the best talents in the world of football, no doubt in my mind, for Bayer Leverkusen. People must remember this name. Creativity, assists, goal scorability. He does it all. So people, watch out. And Leverkusen will be playing Monaco in Europa League. So that's going to be a very good fixture to watch in terms of talents.
Absolutely. And Wirtz, just think about what that kid has been through. Think about what he's been through, and you can take that experience and you can say, what if Jude Bellingham had to go through this? Also 19 years old.
True.
What if Jamal Musiala had to go through something like this? Neither of them have had to deal with this type of a setback. And it is one of the more exciting things to see in 2023 is to see Florian Wirtz back on the pitch for Xabi Alonso's Leverkusen and dishing assists, and hopefully he'll get his goal soon enough.
And Olzek being involved too. So many youngsters. Hinkebi, Tapsoba, Moussa Diaby. Frimpong. Xabi Alonso. Chef kiss, man. Go bold. And be in that top 5 race against Frankfurt, Leipzig, Union Berlin too, Munich, and Dortmund. People want to see that. Xabi Alonso ball. I love that mention. And did we say about Man City, Leipzig? Because Man City now is having a tough time, and they need to prove legally that they're not guilty about these financial mistakes, okay? That we don't want to see that happening. It would be mad Man City getting to lower than League One football. That would be insane. Insane. Guardiola would be out. Haaland would be out. The history of Man City will be tarnished if this happens. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
And there are people much smarter than us that are delving through all of this stuff and figuring out what is different from UEFA's investigation to the Premier League's investigation. But listen, over time, this will work itself out. One of the things that we saw recently was Pep Guardiola's tone of support. He came out and he has said, I have no reason to think that they have lied to me. I don't think that they have lied to me, and I am here, because he had previously had that quote attributed to him where if he found out that somebody lied to him, one of the ownership group had lied to him, he was out the door. But listen, Manchester City's not running away from this. You don't have a 5 or 4 year investigation that leads to 115 charges just get swept under the rug. And you can say as a fan that, what about Chelsea? What about this other team? What about that team? It doesn't matter, because guess what's trained on you? The microscope is trained on you.
True.
Right? Manchester City is under the microscope right now. You can make an argument about all those other teams, but it doesn't matter. And I do have to wonder, right? And that's why Pep probably has said, I support Manchester City. I am ready to go. I am not going anywhere anytime soon, okay? That is huge. I don't think people realize how big that is based on the allegations underneath the hood, the financial accounting allegations, the under the table allegations, that sort of stuff. And that is massive because you got to start to think that guys like Erling Haaland, guys like Bernardo Silva, guys that have been and will be the soul of this club in the future, you got to think that there's some doubt that has crept in their minds, right? A little bit of doubt, like what happens. So I am so trained to think, how is this going to affect Man City's psyche? There's no doubt they have world-class players all across the board, but how will this affect Manchester City's psyche throughout the second half of this season? And every game becomes so ridiculously important that Pep leading the charge and saying, I support, I am here, I'm not going anywhere, more than ever before, I am here for Manchester City. That goes a very long way, and I think that might be why I don't think anything's changing for Man City. It's business as usual, at least until the end of the season.
And I think the Prem is more tight now with these investigations and investment groups coming in. And look at how Newcastle's spending their money. They're not spending like Chelsea did in the past, like Man City did. No. They're spending it very, very organized. And they seem to know that things aren't the same. Okay, I really want to give that shout out. And you said Haaland. Haaland this season is the player with the most goals scored in 2022-2023. Okay, Haaland has 31 goals. Mbappe has 25. Lewandowski 23. Rashford 20. Very interesting to say this one. And Harry Kane 19 goals scored. These are the top 5 goal scorers this season, okay? It just shows how ridiculous the talent of Haaland and Mbappe is, man. Unbelievable two players.
Yes,
unbelievable.
Sir.
Astronomically
Absolutely.
clear. And Jude Bellingham, Musiala, Pedri, Gavi, so many more to come. But I want to ask you this, because this award will be happening. Who's going to win the FIFA's best player? Will it be Messi? Will it be Mbappe? Will it be Benzema? Who will win it?
What are the statues? It's just calendar year. That's what I forget. In this, I mean, does the World Cup count in this?
It has to. Yeah. It has to.
So I'm gonna say Leo Messi.
Yeah, Messi deserves to win the FIFA Best Player this season. Okay, that World Cup form, the best player of the World Cup, no doubt in my mind. But Mbappe is looking very excited for Mbappe. Mbappe is hungry, he's determined, and he certainly has the talent. And Real Madrid, man. Real Madrid, who would you rather get for 2024 if you were Real Madrid, Mbappe or Erling Haaland?
Well, I know it's probably going to be, if it's Zidane coming back at some point, it's going to be killing Mbappe to me.
And Ryan Cherky. I love those
and Ryan
Cherky. That's so... It would be amazing. And Ancelotti, a lot of people say he might be joining the Brazil national team. Every Brazilian must want that. Brazilian.
How actually intuitive is it that Ancelotti would go there? Who has been the biggest reason behind Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo, their development? Who has been the biggest, and who has gotten the best out of Casemiro in the last few years?
True.
It's been Carlo Ancelotti. It has been Carlo Ancelotti.
That was
and man, I gotta say, in watching Real Madrid these days, you know who they're missing the most? Casemiro.
Oh yeah,
they're missing Casemiro the most. I mean, they have lost ground in La Liga. They have let Vinicius Jr. gets his butt physically handed to him and verbally handed to him every game, even if it doesn't cross the line, which it does most of the time, racially. He gets his butt handed to him every game. He still scores, he still assists, he still does amazing things. But they need an enforcer, and they need an enforcer fast. I do not see people going up and attacking the people that are taking pot shots at Vinicius Jr. all game. Or Benzema. Benzema gets his ankles, attacked, his shins attacked all game, every game. And Casemiro, if he was still there, He would not allow that to stand.
I
right?
agree. Good shout, man. Casemiro being absolutely instrumental for Man United. A replacement on the bench needed if Casemiro doesn't play. Games against Leeds show that. Annabelle Mesri turning up. Okay, I wanted to mention that. Golazo free kick. Okay, great player to watch. And we're mentioning FIFA best player. I want to say Ronaldo, okay? Scored a poker in the Saudi League. He's going to be the top goal scorer. And Ronaldo, happy birthday, okay? He turned 38. One of the greatest to play football in this game. And there's a mad stat that I wanted to share with the people at home. Cristiano Ronaldo, at 28, had 339 goals scored. Now at 38... he's got 823 goals scored. Insane what he did in the space of 10 years. At Real Madrid, at Juventus, and even that first season at Man United too. He scored those goals. So
he has truly shown that 38 is the new 25. So good for him.
And Ronaldo has scored more goals after the age of 30 than before too. So with time, Ronaldo improved in that 30 to 35 margin. Okay, he was really unbelievable in those times. So go bold, Ronaldo. Oh, por favor.
Tim Ream, Timmy Ream must have signed up for the Cristiano Ronaldo workout class or something, because it's something like only Ronaldo and Messi can age like fine wine, right?
Ibra.
Actually, there are plenty of others. Ibra, and we have to admit, it is nice to see Ibra back and functional and active. But Ibrahimovic is not back to necessarily deliver a poker in any game or resurrect AC Milan's hopes at a Scudetto again, or a second Scudetto in a row. Ibrahimovic has turned into more of a vocal leader around those camps. The longevity that we do see in this sport now flies in the face. It flies in the face of that thought process that 70 games a year, 80 games a year is absolutely insane. It still is absolutely insane. But obviously these people that have lasted, right? All of these guys that are just getting better and better. It's pretty impressive stuff.
And I want to give an example of a career that shows how Ronaldo, Pirlo, all of them are so impressive. It's Paul Pogba. Paul Pogba still hasn't played a match for Juve, okay? And we're in February. People will be pointing fingers at the success of Man United right now, with Paul Pogba leaving, and obviously Ronaldo too after that Piers Morgan interview. Paul Pogba isn't looking good for many people, and I wouldn't be surprised if Paul Pogba will go to the MLS in 2-3 years time. I wouldn't be surprised.
I just hope he gets healthy again.
Sure, but
if we are going to talk about somebody that might actually be coming to the MLS soon, it's Aubameyang. Aubameyang, Aubameyang, LAFC, I don't know if they'll actually be able to get it over. But that's the thing, is you were listing all of those players, right? All those players that are going to have to leave. Not, it's part of the process. You can't just have 70 players on your roster, right? You're going to have to start bloodletting and letting people go. You mentioned Pulisic. You mentioned possibly Conor Gallagher. You mentioned Loftus-Cheek after today. No, you're also going to have to get rid of two massive clunkers, right? And that is Aubameyang, and it also is Romelu Lukaku. Romelu Lukaku, man. Romelu Lukaku is still on the books at Chelsea. It is still, I believe, a cost of about 58 million plus at Chelsea. So that is one of the big shoes that got to drop, because the way he's been playing for Inter, I don't think, and the health of a lot of the Serie A clubs, Serie A clubs, not Serie L clubs, financially, I don't think anyone's spending 100 million on Romelu Lukaku anytime soon.
The facts, not even 50 million. It's Harry Maguire vibes with Lukaku right there, man.
Ooh,
Ain't looking good, and that for Chelsea too. Another player bites the dust. Lukaku, Pulisic, Ziyech, Gallagher, Mendy. Oh, my Kovacic, terrific, but Kante terrific, but they'll all be leaving as it seems. And I want to end the pod on my end with two Brazilian talents. Okay, I want to first shout out Vitor Roque. Okay, every top team in Europe wants this 70-year-old winger because he's one of the best talents in Copa Sudamericana with 6 goals scored. The key player for Brazil next to André Santos that went to Chelsea. And if Hendrik went to Real, don't be surprised if Barca go and get Vitor Roque. Okay, 60 million release clause, but as it seems, 40 million can do the job to sign him. So let's. I wanted to say that.
Yeah. A great, awesome shout out. And this U20 Sudamericana, I think people need to realize that when you watch this club, you literally are watching. There's a good chance that the majority of these names wind up becoming household names in the future because the U20 Sudamericana, if you go back to the one previous to COVID, the names would be like, oh, yeah, 2020 vision, looking back at it. Oh, yeah, we knew this was going to happen, right? But Luciano Rodriguez and Alvaro Rodriguez plays in Castilla, plays for Real Madrid. All right, so he's already abroad and hoping to I believe he might have actually made his debut or he's on the cusp of making his debut for Real Madrid. But Luciano Rodriguez, I believe, is still in Uruguay, and he's the one that just scored that match winner for Uruguay against Colombia, the hosts, and setting up a 2-point lead where they can either obviously beat Brazil or draw Brazil in the final game to potentially upset Brazil in this this U20 Sudamericano. So Vitor Roque and Andre Santos have been so ridiculously amazing and instrumental for Brazil. But I just want to make sure that you remember the name of that trio from Uruguay: Luciano Rodriguez, Alvaro Rodriguez, and the midfielder that I like the most, Fabrizio Diaz. They're so good. And, I mean, there's a reason why. Let's see. They've won every game here except for one. 7 wins out of 8. 7 wins out of 8, with the only draw coming against Ecuador. And they've got the biggest game ahead of them tomorrow or soon against Brazil. And we'll see.
Love it, love it. And I'm going to mention another Brazilian talent, too, here at the end of the pod, with Ronaldinho's son, signed for Barcelona, leaving Cruzeiro, okay? João Mendes, forward for Cruzeiro, 17 years old. Everybody wants to see if he can match the expectations of Ronaldinho. But just seeing that the legacy of Ronaldinho stays on, and with Barcelona too. So wanted to give that shout out with João Mendes. No pressure,
you
kid.
Think I was gonna say, you think he's got a chance? You think he's got a chance to
Well, to get some minutes, I could see that happening, but if Ferran Jutgla went to like Club Brugge and didn't manage to stay, I don't know if it's going to be very hard. But let's see if João Mendes can do it.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it happen. But I mean, he's got as much of a chance as the Beckham boys got a chance to play for Brentford anytime soon. But he did play for Inter Miami, I think. No, I don't think he actually ever played. Maybe in the U.S. Open Cup. But anyway, I digress. With this, you know what we avoided today? You know what we did not talk about at all? Which maybe as more information comes out, we didn't talk about the Super League.
The Super League. Oh, my days. Which Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Juve are pushing the Super League, have contacted every top club in Europe, as it seems. And the difference, there's no guarantees now. No guarantees. Right. And that should have been in the first proposal, okay? But minimal, I think, is 14 matches of every top team to play each other, which will generate tickets, tourism to their countries. So let's see. I think people are starting to look at it with eyes, giving it a chance. So let's see.
Well, here's the thing. If you're in the camp that a Super League of some sort is inevitable, this, in fact, is a step in the right direction. It is. But if you think that so much has changed amidst fandom, amidst our, inability to kind of feel like we know what's going on at our clubs, or feel like we, actually trust UEFA or FIFA or the Premier League or whatever, right? If you're skeptical of all that, if fandom is still fandom to you, and that domestic league is every bit, the important part of things, and the Champions League isn't broken or something, this doesn't move the needle that much. This doesn't move the needle that much. I don't think enough has changed in the last 2 years. What it feels like to me is it feels like the clubs that are increasingly getting left behind by the financial behemoth that is the Premier League are the clubs that are pushing this as a keeping up with the Joneses type of situation, instead of looking inwards as to how to raise the profile of La Liga, raise the profile of Serie A, and get away from the insanity that has been, we don't talk about Barcelona, the football, as much as we should have over the last year. It has been all about the levers they pull. It has been all about, who says this, who says what. We're getting back to the football, but bringing back this Super League talk only puts that back in the forefront.
But Barca,
it really does.
But Barca can't match the numbers of the Premier League. That's facts, in my opinion. And Barca's transfers this season, guaranteed them winning the La Liga. And Ronaldo and I think Conde were out for the last games in the Champions League too, which were huge factors for them not being in the Champions League. And I want to say too, Barca has record attendances with Xavi, even more than when they played with Guardiola. Camp Nou is absolutely full, supporting this team with Pedri, Gavi, Ronaldo Araújo, Conde, Balde. Yep. They believe in this new core of Barcelona, and I believe in it too. I'm excited, man.
But that's beyond. I'm talking, Real Madrid. I'm talking Barcelona. I'm talking Juve. The guys the leftovers, right, of that original crew, that everyone turned their backs on, and the Premier League clubs have pretty much turned their backs on it. Yeah. Already, this new Super League. It is, if you think it's inevitable, it is a step in the right direction to not being a closed circuit money-making machine. But what I'm trying to say is, like you just said, that there's no way Barcelona is ever going to match the Premier League, right?
Well,
now there was a big decision made, right, back in the day. Yeah, this doesn't happen overnight. There's two ways to make it happen, I guess, overnight, and that is to invite ridiculous amounts of foreign ownership, which has happened in the Premier League. Right? Whether they're Americans, whether they're Qatari, whether they're whatever, ridiculous amounts, okay? And then also to make it seem, or whether or not you believe it or not, to make it seem as if the Premier League is the must-watch football every weekend. And that is something that has not been built overnight. That is something that has been built over the last 20 years. Whether you agree with it, it doesn't matter.
It's very true.
But if La Liga can band together, and I think a lot of this is La Liga clearly has said, this is Super League's never going to happen, not on our watch. Javier Tebas is like, this ain't happening, okay? But when it comes down to it, how do you make La Liga so that high tide rises all ships? How do you make it so that La Liga lifts all of their constituents, all of their teams, and not just the tippy top ones? And that's the issue here. That's kind of the issue. And there's a top to bottom discussion to be had, obviously, in the Premier League too. But when it comes down to it, I mean, that's why you see Bournemouth spending 50 million plus, more than a whole league. But when it comes down to it, there was a decision made 15, 20 years ago, and an incremental growth along the way that has pushed the Premier League to this ridiculous precipice. And whether or not economically it can sustain itself long term, I don't know, right? That's for somebody much higher than either of our pay grades. We don't even get paid, right? Come on. But La Liga, Ligue 1, how do you get, right, Serie A, how do you get that worldwide discussion around your league? And do Serie A fans or La Liga fans even want that? Do they want it to the point where Joe Schmo from Haddonfield, New Jersey is tuning in every week, pretending he knows everything about Serie A or pretending he knows everything about La Liga? I don't know. The casual fan is what ultimately gets you the TV money that you need. Well, and that is the USA. That is East Asia. That is, the most populous places on this planet that don't have football as their day-to-day, check-in. So it's really, really interesting to me as to who's starting that plan at universalizing, that's not a word, who is starting the plan to make La Liga the top league on the planet.
It's, I think, very interesting. I think many points were were raised. I agree with you. The Premier League worked harder in terms of publicizing their own league, which increased the TV rights value completely, which increased the sponsors looking into the Premier League too. La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga, they need to look at what the Premier League did, 100%. And the Champions League too. Like, you can't acquire, like, to just get Champions League football TV right. You can't get a subscription of just Champions League football. People would subscribe to just watch Champions League. And the fact that you can't do it, like, a lot of topics can be discussed because of this. It's the way that it's marketed. But people, tell us down below your thoughts about the Super League. And will it happen? Is it inevitable? Will the Champions League end? Tell us your thoughts in the comment section. In episode 92, we discuss Chelsea. We discuss Arsenal. We discuss now the Super League. Vitor, Roque. Go watch episode 92, people. Please, link in bio, okay? YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And if you're listening until now, do not forget to like this video. And thank you, people, for going bold in episode 92.